Yeah, good morning, my dear students. We're going to start the class. Let others to join. So in yesterday's class, we were discussing the material selection process or methods. So we discussed three different methods. One is called cost per unit strength method. Second one is called the weighted properties method, and third one is called the property difference method, right? So in today's class, so let us continue with some of the terms which are very much usual, which is very much required for us. So in a tolerance analysis, in the sense, so I will take the problems of the material selection later part. Why? Because if I have a physical interaction with you, it will be easy for me. If everything goes well, and if starts from October 1st, we will start starting numerical problems also. By that time, I will cover almost the theory portions. What is there. Okay? So in today's class, we will going to discuss the second part of the module 1, which is a tolerance analysis. So in tolerance analysis, so first we need to discuss the certain definitions of the terms which you might have been studied in your mathematics or somewhere else, right? Same thing which is very much required for us to understand the tolerance analysis and the calculation of tolerances at the end of this chapter. So we have a few problems to solve regarding the tolerances and using two important laws. One is called arithmetic law, and the other one is called sure-fit laws, right? So in the with regard to that, so what today I will start with the tolerance analysis. Today we will going to start with the definitions of some of the terms. So definitely these questions will be appear in your examination for 2 marks. So define the following terms related to the tolerance analysis, right? So let us start with that. So what are the terms that is very much required for us to understand the tolerance analysis concept, right? So yeah, the slides are visible for you.
Okay, sir.
Is it visible? Slide is visible for you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. We'll start now. I think these things we discussed. Okay. Yeah. So this is the one what I wanted to discuss now. So I think in your mathematics, you might have studied this mean, median, mode, standard deviation, variance, and all those things, right? So here again, we need to recall all those things, okay? So what is mean, what is variance, what is skewness, and what is the, what we call it as kurtosis, and all those things. We will go to just start now, right? So here, the definition means, so simple definitions we are having here. So one is a mean. So we usually represent a mean by x bar. So arithmetic mean of a set of n numbers is the sum of numbers divided by n. I think this you might have been studied these things, and you might have solved many problems in the statistics concept in the mathematics, right? Yeah. So someone can mute your microphones. Who is that? It's disturbing me. Harsha,
Sir.
please mute your microphone. Over. Yeah. So mean, the arithmetic mean, we define an arithmetic mean. It is a set of n number, is a sum of numbers divided by n. So we usually calculate mean as, we just denote mean as x bar, which is equal to sum x1 plus x2 to xn divided by n. So which will going to give the arithmetic mean. Why I'm talking this is very important, very much important for us to do the tolerance analysis. Okay. The mean is used to report average size, average yield, average percentage, etc. Right? I think this definition is already familiar for you. I don't want to take much time on the definition of the mean. Second important thing is the variance. I think this also you might have studied. So we usually use the symbol called sigma for representing a standard deviation. But when it comes variance, it is a sigma square. Sigma square is used to denote a variance, right? It is defined as the sum of the squares of deviations from arithmetic mean divided by the number of observations. So this is very important. So it is the variance we're going to calculate sigma square. We represent variance by sigma square, which is equal to the sum of the squares of deviation from the arithmetic mean. So first you have to calculate the deviation from the arithmetic mean. How do you calculate deviation? Is x minus x bar. So you have to calculate the mean. So you have to get the difference in the deviation, that is square deviation in the arithmetic mean, that is x minus x bar, right? So then, yeah, x minus x bar and the square of this, and then you need to add. So that is a summation. It is called as a sum of the squares of deviation from arithmetic mean. In a sense, for each value, for each data what they have given, you need to calculate what is the deviation and you need to square it, and later on you had to add that sum of the squares of the deviation from the arithmetic mean, and then you have to divide that by the number of observations n. So that will constitute the variance for us. Okay, so these are all very important terms that is very much required for us to do the tolerance analysis, right? So arithmetic mean, and the second one is variance. Next comes the most important thing, what we call it as skewness. I think this you have studied or not studied, I don't know exactly. Skewness and kurtosis. So of course we will going to understand what is skewness and what is kurtosis over here, right? So before I just move on to the definition of skewness, I hope you people have studied the what we call it as the normal distribution curve. Am I right? Do you have everybody have the familiarization of normal distribution curve? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Normal distribution curve. It is just like a bell curve. Okay, so where we will going to calculate the standard deviation 3 sigma on either side. Okay, so I think this you might have been studied in your statistics or wherever, what are UG classes, any if you have statistical quality control if you have taken. So there you might have studied how to calculate the sigma and variance, as well as the concept of normal distribution curve, right? So here also, the concept of the skewness, what I'm talking about, the skewness is always refers to the normal distribution curve. So what actually you mean by a skewness? So when you look at this bell curves over here, so basically the skewness is one which is been referring to, just a minute. Yeah, skewness refers to the distortion or asymmetry in a symmetrical bell curve or normal distribution in a set of data. So what does it measures basically? The curve which does not follow the shape of the normal curve, we generally call it as. So when you get a set of data and when you just plot it, So there are what we call it as, you will going to get a curve. So that curve which does not follow the shape of a normal curve, so we generally call that as a skewness, right? So this basically it is a value, the skewness value. It is a value what we call it as. It is in a positive or negative or even unsized also. Different ways you can get these things, right? So therefore, skewness refers to the distortion or asymmetry in a symmetrical bell curve or normal distribution in a set of data, right? So here, the quantitative interpretation of skewness is very complicated, right? So therefore, the what we call it as the qualitative way, what they have represented here in the form of a curves. So you can see if the curve is shifted to the left or to the right, it is said to be skewed. See, this is a normal distribution curve, bell curve. I think you can understand here. This is a bell curve, right? So this is the normal distribution curve, symmetrical distribution. So this is exactly, it is having the symmetry with respect to the mean median mode line. So this is a mean median mode line. Okay, so you will go into getting the symmetricity across the mean median mode line. So what happens, this is called a normal distribution curve, or as simply we call that as a bell curve, right? So if there are some data, so this I think if you have studied statistical quality control or SQC in your UG, you might have drawn these things, and you might have been used this normal distribution curve or to just analyze so how the part rejection or the what we call it as the variations in the dimensions of a part will going to get it. So this is basically, that is what purpose we're going to use it here. So what happens here is, sometimes, so some data you might be there might be some data. So when we use that some data for drawing this curve, so you might find that that curve may be shifted either to the left or to the right of the normal distribution curve or a bell curve. Then we will say that is said to be a skewed. The curve is said to be a skewed. A skewness can be quantified as a representation of the extent to which given distribution varies from normal distribution. So in the sense, so how do we quantify? How do we quantify? Quantify in the sense, how do we calculate how much amount of skewness or the data has been skewed? So that is the representation of the extent to which the given distribution varies from the normal distribution. So how much amount of shift either to the left or to the right of the bell curve has been occur. So that much amount, that measuring that amount of shifting will be represented in the form of a skewed or a given distribution. So that we will go into represent as skewness. A skewness can be quantified as a representation of the extent to which a given distribution varies from a normal distribution, right? A normal distribution has a skew of 0, while a log normal distribution, for example, which would exhibit some degree of right skew. So look at here. So these three curves, what you are seeing on the slide. So this is the symmetrical distribution. Okay, symmetrical distribution. So look at here. So this is the mean line, median, and the mode. So if it has been shifting towards the left, it is said to be a positive skew. And if it is moving towards or shifting towards the right, it is said to be the negative skew. So why this skewness parameter has need to be discussed is because, so this is where you will go into analyze the tolerances. So because setting a tolerance for a given component, for a given dimension, it is one of the challenging tasks for a design engineer. Why? Because too large tolerances or too low tolerances will definitely affect the manufacturing. So maybe possibility that the component may get rejected, maybe not, maybe in the machine shop or in the machine, where it might be during the assembly also it may get rejected. So therefore, an appropriate value of tolerance or appropriate value, that is tolerance value, that needs to be specified for a particular part which undergoes a number of assemblies. So therefore, the deciding how much amount of what should be the tolerance value for the particular component is one of the challenging tasks for a design engineer. So in that respect, so you supposed to know so how the variation in the dimensions can be allowed. So if it happens like this, what are we supposed to do? So these are all the factors that needs to be considered while you are setting a tolerance for any component. Okay, so this is the concept of skewness. It is just a simple understanding is a distortion or asymmetry in a symmetrical bell curve. Okay, so this is what we call it as the skewness. So please remember the bell curve is shifting either to the left or to the right. So that is one important thing, right? So this is a curve what you're supposed to remember. So these are the variation in the what we call it as the distribution. Distribution, how that the data varies, the extent to which we're going to varies from the normal distribution, right? Next thing is this skewness is measured by using a term called coefficient of skewness. So this coefficient of skewness is given by difference in mean minus mode divided by the standard deviation. Sigma represents the standard deviation over here. So we usually use the term coefficient of skewness. So how much amount of the variation that the distribution of data with respect to the normal distribution has been taken place. So that we will going to use it by using the term called coefficient of skewness, which is the ratio of a difference between the mean and the mode to the standard deviation sigma. Okay, so these things is very much required for you to when we solve a problem. So how to calculate coefficient of skewness, all this will come into the picture. So please remember this formula. Coefficient of skewness is the ratio of a difference in the mean and mode to the standard deviation, right? Then the next comes kurtosis. So I think this you might have not been studied in your lower classes, I feel. Kurtosis. So basically, kurtosis is just like a skewness also, is a statistical measure that is used to describe the distribution. To be specific, it is a parameter that describes the shape of a random variable probability distribution. I think whether if you have studied a probability distribution, so there you might be knowing the term, you might have used the word as kurtosis over there, right? So of course it is what we call it as, it is just like a skewness only. It is a statistical measure that is used to describe the distribution. So probability distribution or random variable probability distribution, whereas skewness differentiate extreme values in one versus with the other tail, where kurtosis measures the extreme value in either tail. Okay, so in the sense, the skewness, what does it do? It will go into differentiate the extreme values in one versus the other tail, so other end. But here, kurtosis will go into measure the extreme values on the other end, other tail. Main tail means it is at the end. So this is what we call it as a kurtosis. Okay. So this kurtosis generally we are of three types. One is called mesokurtic, second one is leptokurtic, and third one is called platykurtic. Okay. So what is these three types basically? So mesokurtic. So we will say a mesokurtic means it is basically a distribution with same curtices as the normal distribution. So I think below I have shown the graphs also. So mesokurtic curve, leptokurtic curve, as well as the platykurtic curve over there. Right. So here, what happening? Mesokurtic means distribution with same curtices. You see here. So it is just like a normal distribution what you are getting over here. Right, this is what we call it as the mesokurtic. Right. Second one is called leptokurtic. So leptokurtic is distribution with relatively large tails. So look at the tail over here. Okay, so the end part which is having more, we call that as a leptokurtic. If the distribution of the data is in such a way that which will have a more number of data has been distributed across their extreme ends, or it has been what we call it as clustered. It is clustered across their extreme ends, then we call it as a leptokurtic, right? And the third one is platykurtic. So platykurtic with a very smaller, relatively smaller tail. So look at over here. So the extreme values are not the with a large tail. So it is just like a distribution is just like the what do you call it as the values, or it has been random, it has been distributed uniformly over there. So here, this kind of curtices, we call it as a platykurtic. So very important these things, because they might have asked for the short notes. What is skewness and curtices? Okay, you should be in a position to explain what is curtices, what is mesokurtic, and what is leptokurtic, and what is platykurtic. So mesokurtic means basically the distribution is with the same curtices as the normal distribution. So there is no change with the bell curve or a normal distribution. When it comes to the leptokurtic, so you will have a distribution in such a way that they will have relatively larger tails. Tails are more. In the sense, the more number of data will be clustered. It has been accumulated across the ends, extreme ends, or extreme values. Whereas the platykurtic means where you will have a relatively smaller tails. So distribution is uh, not exactly at the extreme ends. It is distributed between the two ends or two extreme ends of the distribution of the curve. So this is what we call it as curtices. Okay. So these things are very much important for us when I discuss the tolerance analysis in the future classes. Got it? Yeah. Any clarification, my dear students, till now? If you have any clarification, we will just. Anybody, if you have any clarification at any point, so you can ask me. So we will discuss. And before just to go on to move on to the process capability. That's what. Yeah. Any doubts, my dear students, anywhere? Please, you can do a more to ask. Okay, so if there is no clarification, no doubts, we are going to start with the next concept, what we call it as the process capability. And this is one of the most important concept for us. So I think this you might have been studied, might have heard this word process capability in many places. Yeah, anybody can explain what can define what is process capability? Process capability. Anybody can define what you have been understood. Have you heard the word process capability? No. Come on here. What you're talking? Till today, you have not heard the word process capability. Okay, just your knowledge, with your knowledge, can you tell me what is the meaning of that process capability at least? Let it be not exact definition of a process capability. I want what actually you understand by the word process capability. Yeah.
For a machine, if we give a process, it should be able to complete the task, or it should be fit for doing that.
If we give a task, that machine has to complete the task. Okay. Okay. Right. Next. Anybody? Process capability.
It is the capability of machine, sir,
Okay.
to with minimum tolerance of input.
Very good. Yeah. Next. Anybody? Yeah. See, when you look at the word process capability, that word is in relation with a machine, basically, or a process, we can call it as. See, basically, an ability of the process to produce an output within the specified or specification limits. See, whenever any process or any machine, if you look at, so it will have certain limits. So if the machine or a process could able to provide an output within that specification limits or within the specified limits, then we will say the process is capable, or we can say the machine is having a good process capability. So therefore, whenever you are providing specifications, or specifications in the sense, I mean to say it is limits will be given for each process or the machine, so within which the machine or a process has to produce an output, and that output should be within the specified limits. Then we will say the process is capable. So when you put it in the appropriate definition form, a process capability of a machine or a process can be defined as the minimum tolerance to which the machine can possibly be expected to work and produce no defective under specified conditions. This is the exact definition of a process capability. So it is the minimum tolerance to which the machine can possibly be expected to work. So how much narrow down your tolerance limits. So whether that machine or the process can able to, or it has been expected to work, and it should work and it should produce no defective under specified conditions. So the parts should not be defective. The machine should produce the parts which are not defective under the specified conditions. This is what the exact definition of a process capability. Okay, I will just read out once again. The process capability of a machine or a process can be defined as the minimum tolerance to which machine can possibly be expected to work and produce no defective under specified conditions, right? So this process capability studies always leads to improve the equipment maintenance or improve training or reduce cost. So why we need to do the process capability, you may ask. Okay, so this process capability always help us to improve the equipment maintenance, improved training, and reduced cost. All these things will go into help it out when you do the process capability. In the sense, so you'll go into plot a graph and you'll go into study. I think you might have, if you have taken a statistical quality control, you might have heard the word process capability and how to draw the X chart, X bar chart, or P chart, or R chart, or C chart. So how we can calculate the process capability of a machine. Okay. And also it is process capability refers to the ability of a process to produce a products or provide a services capable of meeting the specifications set by customer or a designer. Of course, the same meaning what we are having over here, right? So now the process capability studies leads to improved equipment maintenance, improved training, and of course reduced cost. This is one important thing. So what is the purpose of studying process capability? So when you visit any industries, okay, so if you go for any internship or any just industrial visits, so please look at the process capability charts. So everywhere you'll have a display of this process capability charts. So why? What is the necessity of studying this process capability? Okay, so because when you have visited these industries, especially in a quality control department, across the quality control department, so you just look at this process capability charts will be displayed. So there you will going to know. So why? What is the use of this process capability chart? And if you have an opportunity to visit any of these any of the industries, please inquire. So you will going to get how they will going to do the process capability studies and what actions they will going to take to improve the process capabilities. And if the machine or a process is not capable, so what are the remedial actions that needs to be taken to make the process capabilities. So when you visit industries, please go to the quality department and please check, please observe charts which will be displayed over the boards over there, and please try to understand what is this process capability charts and what is its significance also. Okay. So this is what the process capability studies leads to improve maintenance, equipment maintenance, improved training, and reduced cost. Next comes before we have capable process and all these things. So I have certain definitions: control limits versus specification limits. So specifications communicate what customers expect, want, or need from the process. Right. So when you want to do any what we call it as the process capability study, a machine can be had plottings the measurements of 50 to 100 consecutive pieces of a product in exact order which are made. In the sense, what I mean to say here is, so process capability charts are specified or it is been drawn by just making the measurements. So we will take if a simple example, if you take a machine, one machine, if it is a special purpose machine, or whether it is a milling machine or a lathe, or whether it is a drilling machine. So when they want to do the process capability study, so they will take a set of components which has been produced from the particular machine, maybe 50 to 100 components, and they will start plotting the graph. So how they can go into what is the distribution of the dimensions, how the dimensions will be distributed across the plot. So this is where they will go into understand how the dimensions have been distributed for that particular machine, and based upon that they will go into study the process capabilities, right? So understanding that, so we need to understand two important terms. One is called control limits and another one is the specification limits. So specification limits are the one which communicate what customers expect or want or need from the process. Specifications can be considered the voice of the customer. Okay. Then the second one is the control limits. So control limits are the voice of the process. Very important thing. So control limits are the voice of the process. The center line on the X bar chart represents process centering. The R and S chart limits represents the amount of variation present in the process. Control limits are a prediction of variation that the process will exhibit in the near future. This is the two important things you're supposed to remember. A specification corresponds to the customer expectation, what customer wants. So customer specifications or customer expectations will be totally different from that of what is the process is capable of. So therefore, the voice of the process is called a control limits. So we will be being the design engineers, we will be knowing both the things. One is the specification limits and we will be knowing control limits. So how much surface finish you can obtain, or how much surface finish you can provide or you can import for a given product using that particular machine. That definitely that would be different for the specification limit. The customer may be expecting different, but you will be knowing what is the machine, what is the capability of this machine for producing that much amount of surface finish. So this is what the differences you're supposed to be very careful while you are setting the tolerances for the machines, right? So this control limits and the specification limits. So we will going to have these graphs we have plotted over here. So you can see here the very capable process. See, USL corresponds to upper specification limits and LSL corresponds to lower specification limits. See, USL specification limits and control limits, what I am talking here. Upper specification limit and lower specification. USL is upper specification limit, whereas LSL is a lower specification limit. So this is a plot what we have drawn to understand whether the process or the machine is capable or not. So for understanding this, so we have taken a sample of 50 to 100 parts from the particular machine, and then they have drawn the graph to understand how the process or the machine is capable of, right? So when you look at here, see, this is the center line. What we have drawn is the control limit. Control limit is the voice of the process, whereas specification limit is the voice of the customer or the need or the want. So this is upper specification limit and this is a lower specification limit, and this is the control limit exactly at the center. So when you look at this distribution, so how the process is taking place, how the dimensions, or if the output of a product is being within the specification limits or not, then we will say this is the capable process. So look at here, this is a capable process because none of the part, look at here, is not crossed either the upper specification limit nor the lower specification limit. So it is within the specification limits only. So it is, the curve is between USL and LSL. Of course, the variation has been occurring across its control limit line. That is not a matter for us. So this is called the very capable process, right? Next comes second one, you can see over here. This is what we say an adequate process. See here what's happening. So the process is not capable, but of course it is within the specification limit, but you are not expecting the product to be manufactured or to be obtained. Output is not uniform. So there may be a random variations in the dimensions and the distributions of the product dimensions over here. So look at here, it is started from here. So here, look at the curve. It is not uniform as it was in the previous case, right? So this is what we call it as, of course, it is within the specification limit, but still we are not getting the expected, what we call it as the output from the process or from the machine. Right. So this is the process is, we'll say, constitute it as an adequate process. Then moving on to the third graph over here. Here, the capable process, but it is poorly centered. So in the sense, look at here. See, when you look at the diagram over here, see the distribution is, it is taking place across the upper specification limits, right? So process is capable, okay, but poorly centered. Centering is in the sense you are not being consider the control limits properly over here. Okay, so we are not defined the control limits properly. So this is, the process is not properly, it is poorly centered, but it is capable process. And moving on to the last one, which is not capable. Look at here. So how it is happening. So everything it has been distributed haphazardly here. So the distribution of the product output is so haphazard. So where we can say the process is totally not capable. Okay, this is how generally we go ahead with the uh, plotting to analyze how the process is capable or not capable. Okay. Okay, right. Any clarification, my dear students? I will stop at this point now. So we have to go for the quiz. I expect everybody to move on to the Google Classroom and please attend the quiz over there. Okay. Just a minute. Just you can go to the Google Classroom and you can attend the quiz over there. The quiz is assigned over there. Please move on to the Google Classroom. Read the question properly. See, submission of quiz is mandatory for everybody. So based on that only, you will going to get the attendance. Okay.
Yes, sir. So third one you should fill in the blanks. So,
Yeah, fill in the blanks, right?
there are 2 words I should write.
Yeah,
continuous.
2 words. 2 words. You have to type it.
Okay.
If you have submitted, you can leave and you can join for the next hour class. But submission of quiz is mandatory for everybody. Based on that only, you're going to get the attendance also. Okay, guys, I will stop at this point. Thank you. We'll meet at 11:50. Okay.